When I said that I couldn't declassify it now, that's because I wasn't president. I never made any bones about that. When I'm not president, I can't declassify.
And that's what you said. You didn't declassify it.
I said, no. I said I couldn't
could have
but that wasn't a
declassified it.
document, Brett. There was no document.
What's up, guys? So Fox News just released an interview they did with between Brett Baier and Donald Trump, talking about actually a lot of things. It was actually a very interesting interview. The part that we're going to cover today is the parts concerning his indictment, the investigation into him as far as the classified information, and a lot of people on the mainstream media, independent media, are saying that Trump confessed, that this interview is not a good interview, and that he really hurt his case. I don't think it was. I think it was a good interview in some aspects. I do think there were some things he could have said more clearly, some things he could have clarified better, some things he probably shouldn't have gotten into. And so we're going to take a look at that right now, and I'll give you my reaction and my opinion on what he said and how it may have hurt him or may not have hurt him. So let's get into it.
Why did you have this very sensitive national security defense documents, like the war plans for a strike on Iran?
So like every other president, I take things out. And in my case, I took it out pretty much in a hurry, but people packed it up and we left. And I had clothing in there. I had all sorts of personal items in there, much stuff. I've had a lot of things in there. I will go through those boxes. I have to go through those boxes. I take out personal things. As far as the levels and all, everything was declassified because I had the right to declassify. You want to talk about a mess, take a look at Biden, where he's got 1,850 boxes. He has boxes stored in Chinatown in D.C. He has boxes stored at Penn Center, and he has boxes under his Corvette and around his Corvette sitting in a garage for years where it was very seriously classified. I have every right to have those boxes. This is purely a Presidential Records Act. This is not a criminal thing.
So yeah, there was a lot said there. Just to break it down, the first thing that he mentioned was that he hasn't had a chance to go through all the documents yet. If you remember, he left in a hurry. Donald Trump really believed that Pence was going to come through and that they were going to be able to send those ballots back to the states, and that it was going to work out different, and that he would be elected to a second term. So Donald Trump didn't, if you remember, he really didn't. Most presidents, when they leave office, they pardon a bunch of people, they prepare for all this. He didn't really prepare. He wasn't cooperating with the transition team very well, with the Biden transition team. He was in denial, I think. And so when he finally did leave, he left in a hurry, and they packed up everything. And so when he says that he hasn't had time to go through the documents or go through the boxes, I think that that's probably true. I think he just hasn't gone through it because he everything was done in such a rush. He doesn't know exactly what's in each box. I mean, I know when I personally moved into our new home, I still have boxes that I haven't opened, haven't gone through. So to me, a lot of people, a lot of the pundits are hitting him on that's not, to me, unusual or crazy that he hasn't gone through them all yet, considering he does like to keep anybody that's looked into Trump and whatnot. He does like to keep mementos. He likes to keep newspaper clippings. He basically documents his entire life. He just put out a book where he keeps essentially every letter he's ever been sent from all kinds of people. So he keeps everything. So it's important to him. So that's why, he wants to go through it. And I think he was in negotiations with NARA about sending them whatever he doesn't want to keep. Another point that he made was that he declassified everything that he took. Now, the president has the sole authority to declassify. The vice president can't do that. As president, he can declassify. Now, the Constitution doesn't state exactly how he's supposed to do that. It doesn't say, you got to do X, you got to do Y, you got to do Z. There's no official way to declassify. So when he says that he packed up the document and left the White House with that document, it's a pretty legitimate legal argument to say that the act of him doing that caused the document to be declassified. He has the freedom to take and do what he wants as president. Now, I don't think he should go around saying just thinking about declassifying it. I think I think the proper way is to communicate that, and I think he kind of set himself up for a legal battle, and for he allowed himself to kind of he put himself in a position to where this could be taken and used against him, when he could have just simply stated on his last day in office, these are the documents I'm taking. He could have sent a memo out or done whatever. I'm declassifying everything that I'm taking with me. The fact that he didn't know everything he was taking makes it a little hard. But yes, anything that he physically takes out of, anything that he physically takes with him, he should theoretically be declassified. Now, that's a gray topic. A lot of people who don't like him are saying, oh, you can't do that. That's not, but there's no specific way to do that. And so when he says he declassified him, I give him the benefit of the doubt. Either way, I mean, he's the president of the United States. So he has quite a bit of power. The other thing he mentioned was that Biden committed a much worse crime. Like, number one, Biden wasn't the president. He was a vice president. He also had documents back from when he was a senator. So he never had the authority to declassify. So essentially, like, he has no excuse. Like, Biden has no excuse as to why he has these documents other than he took them. And he has so many. He's got like 1,800 boxes. Think about how much that is. 1,800. That wasn't on accident. That was done on purpose. And so there's been people that have been put in prison for taking a picture on a submarine. There's people that have been put in prison for taking classified information that were not supposed to take classified information. There was recently a Democrat that was caught putting classified information in his like socks or in his pants, and because he was a Democrat, he got off on that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a good analogy is if you burglarize somebody's house and then you give them their stuff back, does that mean that you don't get charged with burglary? Does that mean you're all good to go? Because that's what happened with Biden. That's what happened with Pence. They took something that didn't belong to them, and yeah, just because they returned it, they're forgiven of all their crimes. And they're going after Trump for burglarizing essentially his own house. He's the one person in the entire world or the entire country that could have taken those documents. And so, if we go back to the burglary argument or the burglary metaphor, now they're coming after him for taking stuff out of his own house. That makes no sense to me. I don't think that they should be going after him for something like this, a paperwork situation. I mean, if you're going to set the whole country on fire, it needs to be something just outrageous. He's attacked somebody, or he shot somebody, or he some kind of violent crime. You don't just set this whole country on fire and our freedoms on fire because of a small document error. If he was taking bribes for years, if he was making money off of his son, that kind of stuff, if you could prove it, if you have wire transfers, if you have a laptop that showed up with all this criminal activity, then yeah, go after him for that. But this is a lot. It's asking a lot. So let's go to the next video.
Please, could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
because they have no. We
They
were
did
talking.
ask for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
"Can you
them
give the
some,
documents back?"
And we were talking,
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And in
But
all
why not
fairness,
just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to Nara yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but
I've been
according to
very,
the
very
indictment,
busy.
you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things, golf shirts, clothing, pants, shoes. There were many things. I would say
Iran war plans?
much more, not that I know of, but everything was declassified. And Biden didn't have the right to do that because he wasn't president. Nor did Mike Pence, by the way, have the right to do that because he wasn't president.
All right, I'm not going to belabor this,
No, but
I
you
do
look at
want to
this,
just get to the
other
specifics.
presidents, when they leave, they take the papers. They have thousands and thousands. Obama had it. Nixon had it. Carter had
Their
it. The
argument
Bushes
is that
had
these
it.
are super sensitive national security documents.
All
right, so here's,
I'm sure you'll
this
see
is-
real super sensitive that Biden has, because
This is-
Biden has far more than anybody's ever kept.
And he turned them over when
No,
asked.
he
but-
didn't.
but
He
that's
still
what he
hasn't given
says.
the 1,850 boxes that's stored at the University of Delaware. In fact, they're fighting them in court,
Right.
and they're fighting them. And
But he
the
opened
boxes,
up for them to look at it.
excuse me, the boxes from Chinatown, he didn't turn them over. He sent them up to his lawyer in Boston to look at before they handed them over.
And there are special counsel that's looking at that, and we'll see what comes out
Well,
of it. But
you
I
can
do want to
imagine-
just
you can
end with
imagine
this. I
what's
don't want to
gonna
dwell on it, but
We have to understand the context of what is exactly going on here. Okay. Biden stole classified information. We know that. That's a fact. Pence stole classified information. Trump is the only one being charged with this. So number one, this is politically motivated. This is they're definitely targeting him. So as a voter, the lens that I'm looking through is a lens of corruption. So, it's one thing if you find a crime and you investigate it. It's another thing if you look at a person and try to find a crime. You're searching for a crime. And that's what's going on here. They're searching for a crime. They're trying to stop him from running because they're afraid. That should tell you something. So that's number one. Number two, in this clip, he's talking about he was in the middle of a negotiation. So he's negotiating with Nara. Probably told Nara, hey, I'm going through these boxes. When I get done going through them, I'll give you everything that I'm not choosing to keep. Nara, of course, is saying this is all classified information. They don't believe him when he said he declassified it. And they subpoena him. Okay, so he's probably the only president that's ever been subpoenaed for this. So they subpoena him. And Donald Trump is saying, first of all, number one, I have a right to all this material. I have a right. So that's why he didn't just give it over. It's like if you ever watch those clips where somebody's been pulled over or when somebody's maybe encountered an officer. Say you're walking down the street and an officer comes up and they're like, I want to identify you. I want to know your name, your birth date. Give me your information. That officer doesn't have the right to just walk up to you and identify you. They don't. That's what they did in that's what they do in dictatorships. Okay, so they don't have the right to do that. So Donald Trump, whether you believe him or whether you agree with him or not, Donald Trump, according to his lawyers and the research and everything that he's done, felt that this was his legal property. This was his. So NARA can ask for it, but they can't demand it. If you look at the Presidential Records Act, when the president leaves office, the president gets to decide what's personal records and what's presidential records. And that is the president's sole authority as president. And this is backed up by the Clinton case. When you look at the ruling on the Clinton case, it says here, the act requires that materials produced or received by the president, to the extent practical, be categorized as presidential records or personal records upon their creation or receipt and be filed separately. The act assigns the archivist no role with respect to personal records once the presidency concludes. So anything that's personal has nothing to do with the Presidential Records Act. That's personal. Okay, it goes on to say the Presidential Records Act does not confer any mandatory or even discretionary authority on the archivist to classify the records, meaning NARA or the archivist in this case can't go to the president and say that's not personal property, that's presidential property. If you read this ruling, they have no authority to classify records. So it says here, under the statute, the responsibility is left solely to the president. So the president is the one that makes that decision. They just, all they can say is, okay, this is presidential records. Please give me the presidential records. That's all they can do. They can't force him to classify things a certain way. So the president's right on that. Okay, during this exchange, Brett tells President Trump that Biden handed everything over. Pence handed everything over. Number one, Biden didn't just like voluntarily hand all this stuff over. Biden was, like Trump is right, Biden was caught. If you remember, this whole thing came out because somebody at the university found a closet that had classified information belonging to President Biden. So he was caught, okay? They neglect to tell the American people or the public that Biden has been keeping these classified documents for decades. This goes back as far as his time as senator. So he's been stealing records for decades, probably selling American secrets in exchange for money because we know he's corrupt. We know that he's accepting bribes. And when it finally comes out, when somebody catches him, he supposedly is giving everything over, and that makes everything okay. So if you burglarize somebody's house, if you rob somebody, as long as you give that back to them, all is forgiven. It's totally okay. But when President Trump takes his own things, that's not okay. No, we have to go after him for that. We have to put him in prison for the rest of his natural life. That's a double standard. That's a prism that we have to look through when we're looking at this situation. So regardless of what you hear out there, when you hear the mainstream media and others saying that this case is different, I don't think that it is. And in my personal opinion, like when you look at everything that's happened with President Trump, when you look at the Russia hoax, the impeachment number one, impeachment number two, how many times have they gone after President Trump, and how many times has it come out that President Trump was right? Every single time. And now this is different. This is the one that's going to put Trump in prison. Like he's guilty, this blah, blah, blah. No, this is the same as everything else. So we have to call it out for what it is.
And you were here at Bedminster on July 21st, 2021, after you're no longer president, and you were recorded saying that you had a document detailing a plan of attack on another country that was prepared by the U.S. military for you when you were president, the Iran attack plan. You remember that?
Ready?
You were recorded.
It wasn't a document.
Okay.
I had lots of paper. I had copies of newspaper articles. I had copies of magazines.
I know. This is specifically a quote. You're quoted on the recording saying the document was secret, adding that you could have declassified it while you were president, but, quote, now I can't. You know this is still secret, highly confidential. And the indictment cites the recording and the testimony from people in the room saying you showed it to people there that day. So you say on this on tape
it says just the opposite.
That you can't declassify it, so why have it?
When I said that I couldn't declassify it now, that's because I wasn't president. I never made any bones about that. When I'm not president, I can't declassify.
And that's what you said. You didn't declassify it.
I said no. I said I couldn't.
Could have
but that wasn't a document, Brett. There was no document. That was a massive amount of papers and everything else talking about Iran and other things. And it may have been held up or may not, but that was not a document. I didn't have a document per se. There was nothing to declassify. These were newspaper stories, magazine stories, and articles.
I'm just saying what the indictment says.
Well,
the recording and the people in the room who testified.
These people are very dishonest people. They're thugs. They're thugs. If you look at what they've done, to other people, what they've done and overturned in the U.S. Supreme Court. These are thugs.
The
These are
suggestion
dishonest
was that
people.
you wanted this as evidence that the military, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, had preemptively sent you plans for a possible attack on Iran and that you didn't order that to happen. That's the
I
suggestion.
never ordered it to happen, no.
But that's
No.
why you wanted the document.
I don't think I've ever seen a document from Milley. Milley, frankly, was incompetent. The last one I'd want to attack with as my leader would be Milley. That I can tell you.
All
and
right,
I think
last
you
thing
know
on
that.
this. There are 31 documents listed. Nuclear capabilities of foreign countries, related to military capabilities of foreign countries, intelligence briefings on foreign countries. Why do you want to hold on to those documents after you're president?
I don't say I do.
You just didn't know
We
what was
were
in the boxes?
discussing with NARA, giving them back. All of a sudden, we've got raided, which is a violation of my, Fourth Amendment rights. They raided my home, and they came in and they took things. We were discussing this with NARA. Look at Obama, look at Clinton. Clinton took documents, Clinton took tapes in his socks.
Interviews
And you know
with
what
the
happened?
historian.
The Clinton socks case.
I do know it well.
And it basically said the president has every right to keep whatever he wants, and that includes me.
And the question
This
is
was
whether
not a criminal case. Let me tell
highly
you.
classified government national security documents fall in that
I
category,
can-
and that battle is going to be fought in the courts.
It's already been fought.
All right.
There's a decision strongly that you can keep. But I wouldn't have kept. But they raided my house. They came in and raided. We were discussing, having very good discussions with NARA, a radical left group, by the way. And all of a sudden, my house got raided.
Do you know if you still have any highly sensitive government
No,
documents?
I don't have anything, no.
Okay.
But what I'm concerned about, they took everything, right? I don't know what they took. They could be stuffing it. I don't know what they put in there. And we wanted to be there when they were taking. They wouldn't let anybody in the room. They've never treated a president like this.
And that's fair for you to point out. I guess what this points to is this recording where you said you could have declassified it when you were president. You didn't.
No,
so
I
it's
could
still
have
classified.
when I was president, but there's no document there. Those were newspaper articles.
Okay.
They were copies of articles and magazines. There was no document there. And I couldn't have done it after I was out.
Okay, so a couple things I want to point out right away. First of all, like when you're watching this, or at least when I was watching it, Brett doesn't believe him, or doesn't. It's okay that he doesn't believe him, but he doesn't like give Trump the benefit of the doubt. When somebody's charged with a crime, they're supposed to be presumed innocent until guilty. This is like the linchpin, or this is like the crux of the argument that a lot of people are making that Trump is guilty. If Trump said this, if Trump said that he didn't declassify this, then that means he's in really big trouble. I see that all day long on TV. And we haven't heard Trump's side until now. And if you listen to what Trump says, and you listen to it with an open mind, what he's saying is he did not have that document. They've gone after him in the past. It turns out Trump is right. So now this time is supposed to be different. Now Trump's supposed to be wrong, right? No, I'm not going to look at it that way. I'm going to look at it from the aspect that maybe what the FBI has written down here is not 100% the truth. And why haven't they released the recording if they have it? So according to the indictment, Trump held up a document and said, "Hey, this is supposed to be classified, this is classified information. I did not declassify it as president, so it's still classified, but I could have declassified it, but I didn't." That's what he supposedly said in this conversation with a couple other people. Okay, so the first thing is, number one, he needs to be really careful who he's talking to about this kind of stuff. Trump has a bad habit of taking the bait or setting himself up in a way that can look bad or be used against him. That doesn't mean he's guilty, but it means like, come on, man, you got to make better decisions sometime. But number two, his side of the story is that he never had the actual document. He was just talking to these people, and this particular subject came up in the conversation. That's what he's saying. And Brett he doesn't say that very clearly. Brett also interrupts him a lot. But he's saying, number one, there was no document. So first of all, if there was no document, then he didn't do anything wrong, because the document's not there. Now, can he get in trouble for talking about something that's classified, for describing something that's classified? That I don't know. But this whole thing is about him possessing classified documents that he's not supposed to have. If he doesn't have the document, and if it's just a bunch of newspaper clippings and like this came up in the discussion, I can see that happening. I can see him having a discussion and maybe he was gloating or whatever, and he says, yeah, there was a plan to attack Iran. I told him no. I could have declassified that information, but I didn't. But yeah, that did happen. I can see him talking about it, but according to him, what he's saying is he never had to document, which basically means that's a mute argument, okay? The other thing that he mentioned was that talking about the DOJ, and honestly, everybody around Trump is that they're very dishonest, that these are thugs going after him. And I think something that Trump, and to his credit, he's new on the political scene for the most part, but I don't think Trump realized how far the rabbit hole goes. I don't think he realized how deep the swamp actually is. And unfortunately, he chose a lot of swamp creatures to work in his administration. And he's learning that the second he turns his back, whoever he's trusted is going to just stab him right in the back. The moment he gives somebody something they can run with, they're going to run with it. And that's the type of people that he's been working with in Washington, D.C. That's Washington, D.C. I think what he's saying makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of people out there that disagree with that. That's up to them. But I guess what I'm taking from this and what I get out of this whole thing is that we know from his history of being prosecuted by the DOJ and by the left and everything else, we know that they've come after him for many things. We know he's been impeached twice. They've appointed I don't know how many special counsels, and in every case, they were wrong and he was right. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to believe Trump based on the history that we have with the DOJ and everything else. I'm going to believe him until some other irrefutable proof comes out. And even if they do come out with the proof, I'm going to look at it from the reality, from the prism of corruption and persecution, which is the reality in this situation. The reality is he's being persecuted. They're coming after him and searching for any little crime, and they're trying to knock him out of the race. So that's what this is, and it's plain, it's simple, it's clear as day.